So I'm Dr. Rita McGuire. I'm the Chief Medical Officer here at Wakana, one of the co-founders, and I'm excited to bring a very, very critical and very interesting topic this evening on our Doctor's Edition. Tonight, we're going to talk about the endocannabinoid deficiency. Yes, it is truly a real entity, and many of us that are on the line, or many of us who can watch us on Facebook Live, many of our family, many of our friends truly may suffer from our endocannabinoid system being deficient. So let's talk a little bit about the cannabis plant first, because I think that having an understanding about the cannabis plant and the compounds that the cannabis plant produces is crucial. So the cannabis plant is really the family, and the family has two species. And this is what's critical in really removing the negative stigma that cannabis has, right? Many of us know that cannabis has a species called marijuana. And if you don't know about marijuana, marijuana is the part of the plant that gives you the high. It gives you the euphoria. It gives you the paranoia. It even gives you the munchies, right? And then there's the other side of the plant. This is the part of the plant that I was not aware of about 4.5 years ago, and it's called hemp. Hemp is the part that gives you the health without the high. So not all cannabis products give you a high if they are sourced from the hemp plant. So just know the difference is that in marijuana, there's high levels of THC and very minute levels of CBD, and in hemp, it's very low levels of THC and high levels of CBD. So that is the main difference. So the cannabis plant has about 140 compounds. They're called cannabinoids that have been identified. 140. Obviously, we're not going to go through 140 right now, but we're going to talk about and learn about the main cannabinoids that the plant makes. And they're called phytocannabinoids because they are coming from the plant. So let's talk about THCA. See, THCA, or whenever you see an A behind one of these compounds, it means that it's the acidic form. So THCA is the main constituent in raw cannabis, and it converts to delta-9 THC when you burn it, when you vaporize it, or when you heat it at certain temperatures. So THCA, CBDA, CBGA, anything that has an A behind it is the acidic form of the cannabinoids. And what's very interesting about these cannabinoids in their acidic form is that they work very much like Motrin or Aleve. These are called COX-1 and COX-2 inhibitors. So this is why when you use cannabis-based products, it reduces inflammation. It reduces pain because it's working just like Motrin and Aleve and other medications that we all have used and maybe still are using for inflammatory and pain conditions. This particular cannabinoid, THCA, also acts as an anti-proliferative and anti-spasmodic, meaning that it can assist with those conditions where you have spasms of the legs, like multiple sclerosis, or maybe you have a condition that is causing cells to metastasize or proliferate or grow. Then we move on to THC. Again, THC is that compound that gives you the high. It's the most abundant cannabinoid present in marijuana. It's responsible for the psychoactive effects, for the paranoia, right? And it acts on receptors in our body that help to reduce pain. It helps to be a very good analgesic, and it has antioxidative activities, meaning that it can come in and help to reduce free radicals that really tear our bodies apart. And then we have CBDA. Again, whenever you see an A behind a cannabinoid, it means it's in its acidic form. This particular cannabinoid has high levels of CBD. And again, it has the same sort of mechanism of action as COX-2 drugs, like Motrin, like Aleve, like ibuprofen. So this is why they have such great anti-inflammatory effects. And then there's CBD, cannabidiol. It has a medicinal effect on the body when it is alone and when it's combined with THC in low levels. And it also has an antagonistic effect on different receptors in our body. Now that's a little confusing now because you really haven't, we haven't gone over the receptors that compounds bind to in the body. And this is why cannabis and CBD is so effective. But just know that CBD has its own specific pathways. And these pathways help CBD to help reduce seizures or epilepsy, anxiety. They also are anti-inflammatory. So their mechanisms are a little different in action from the other cannabinoids, but just know that they do bind to receptors. Now, CBN is a great cannabinoid, and it's really been done, a lot of research has been done on CBN as it affects insomnia or sleep disorders. It has a mild psychoactivity to it, but it also has weak agonistic properties where it's binding to receptors in our body, sending signals to help relieve the body when we're talking about getting sleep. CBG is another cannabinoid that they're doing a lot of research. You're going to hear about CBG. Not only is it good to reduce inflammation in the gut, but CBG is also being looked at as a therapeutic cannabinoid helping with glaucoma. So it also has been found to help reduce tumor cells. It helps to promote bone growth, and it also has anti-inflammatory properties as well. And then CBDV. CBDV, like THCV and other cannabinoids with a V, just means that it is substituting a carbon in the fifth position from the third position. What does that do? Well, they have researched CBDV, and they are really looking to use CBDV in the management of seizures and epilepsy. So just know that there's a lot of research going on with these cannabinoids in different arenas in healthcare. So let's move on to other systems in our body, right? When we look at the respiratory system or the digestive system or the endocrine system, the reproductive system, the muscular system, the lymphatic system, the cardiovascular system. You all remember these systems and learning them in grammar school and high school and even college. But there's one system that we did not learn about. I didn't learn about it as a physician or even a medical student, and it's called the Endocannabinoid System. Now, this system is deemed the most vital regulatory system in our body. It is deemed more important than any of these other systems that you see there in the slide. Why? Because it regulates and modulates our homeostasis. the ability of our body to stay in balance. And so let's go over the three components that the endocannabinoid system is made of. One is it's made of endogenous cannabinoids. Now, we just went over a lot of the cannabinoids that the plant makes, but our body produces two main cannabinoids, and they are 2-AG and anandamide. We're going to learn more about that in a moment. The second component of the endocannabinoid system are the receptors. Now, I've touched on those receptors, CB1 and CB2. So the cannabinoids have to have something to bind to so it can send signals throughout the entire body to keep our body in balance or homeostasis. So that's component 2, the receptors. And then the third component of the endocannabinoid system are enzymes. Enzymes, FAAH and MAGL, these are enzymes that when they are in high levels, it causes a deficiency of our body being able to produce endogenous cannabinoids. So let's look closely at these three components. Let's first talk about endocannabinoids. Endo stands for endogenous. And this means that these are compounds that are originating within and produced naturally by our body. So these cannabinoids refer to a group that are activated in our body. They're lipid-based. They're neurotransmitters, meaning they are very, very vital in sending messages to the brain, to the central nervous system, to our immune system, to our periphery, to tell the body either to reduce inflammation, to stop anxiety, to reduce all of the chemicals that can cause depression, anxiety, and insomnia, and much more. And so these endogenous cannabinoids are transient. They're synthesized on demand. So when the body needs help, it produces these endogenous cannabinoids. So when they interact with the receptors that we talked about, and we're going to talk about at length, when they bind with these receptors, this is when they become magical. This is when our endogenous cannabinoids can regulate our mood, our memory, our appetite, our pain, our sleep-wake cycles. So let's talk about two of the major endogenous cannabinoids that our body produces. One is called 2-AG. Let's talk about anandamide first. Anandamide is the endogenous cannabinoid of bliss. It makes us feel happy. In fact, anandamide is very much analogous to THC, because when people use THC, they feel joyful, they feel blissful, they feel happy. So this particular cannabinoid that our body produces makes us feel happy. It comes from the Sanskrit word ananda, which means joy. It means bliss. It means happiness. In fact, anandamide is found in high levels in breast milk. So if you know a breastfeeding mom, or maybe you breastfed your children, you remember how happy your child was during breastfeeding. Now, this particular endogenous cannabinoid binds to CB1 and CB2 receptors. Again, there needs to be receptors around for all of these chemicals to bind to, so they can send signals to different areas of the body to put the body in balance. Now, 2-AG is another endogenous cannabinoid. It's also found in high levels of breast milk. It's found in dark chocolate. That's why when you eat dark chocolate, you feel good. It's found in beer hops. And this is analogous to CBD. So 2-AG, unlike anandamide, gives your body more of a comfort. It gets the body that blissful, happy feeling. Again, it binds to these CB1 and CB2 receptors so that it can send signals throughout the entire body for homeostasis or balance. So this is the reason that many of us have clinical endocannabinoid deficiency, because when these two endogenous cannabinoids are deficient, when our body can't produce these cannabinoids, we are in trouble. So when we look at the receptors, that's the second component of the endocannabinoid system. These receptors are found throughout our entire body. They're found in the brain and the central nervous system. Those are mainly CB1 receptors. And then in our immune system, in our periphery, are CB2 receptors. So to get a better visual of these receptors, you can see CB1 on the left are targeted to different organs and glands. And then CB2 on the right is targeted to different organs and glands. But just know that when you consume a cannabis or when you consume CBD, you can consume any of the other cannabinoids. They bind to these receptors and send signals to different areas of the body. Now, the third component of the endocannabinoid system, so we've talked about the endogenous cannabinoids, that's 2-AG and anandamide. We've talked about the receptors, CB1 and CB2, those are the main receptors. The third component are enzymes. Now, these enzymes, like FAAH and MAGL, when they are producing a high level of their activity in the body, they break down the endogenous cannabinoids. So you want something in the system that's not going to allow these enzymes to be in high levels, because when they're in high levels, we have low levels of anandamide, we have low levels of 2-AG, and we feel crappy. Our body's not in balance, our body's not in homeostasis. So IDFP is an enzyme that helps to break down these FAAH and MAGL so that we have nice normal levels of anandamide and 2-AG. So you can see that there is a real science behind how products like CBD work in the body. You can see now the science behind how all of the other cannabinoids like THC and CBN and CBG and CBC works in the body. And when the body can't produce these endogenous cannabinoids, we're in trouble. And so that's why you're on the line to understand the importance of using CBD. Now, when we look at the human endocannabinoid system, it's important that you know that not only vertebrates have an endocannabinoid system, that's mammals, etc., but there are some invertebrates that have an endocannabinoid system as well, like sea urchins and other invertebrates. So when we talk about how they work, it's called a lock and key system. So the cannabinoids are the key. Those receptors we talked about are the lock. And when they combine together, it's very, very much an opportunity for the body to release these cannabinoids in the system to send a signal and to put the body in balance. Now, what's very key and very interesting is that you see CBD doesn't have a receptor or doesn't have a lock by it, right? CBD does not work directly on CB1 and CB2 receptors, but it works indirectly with hundreds of other receptors that have been researched and identified and discovered over the last century. So just know that CBD does have a powerful interaction in the endocannabinoid system, but it has an indirect relationship with CB1 and CB2 receptors. So think of it as a lock and key. You consume CBD and it starts to bind to a lock to put the body back in balance. So you can see on the right that there are receptors found throughout the entire body. Every organ and gland has receptors that are looking for these cannabinoids. So this clinical endocannabinoid deficiency was discovered in 2001 by my colleague, Dr. Ethan Russo. In fact, Dr. Ethan Russo has been on our webinars last year. He was one of our guests, and he discovered that all humans have an underlying endocannabinoid tone. So some of the tone may be high, some may be low, some may be deficient. And this is why this deficiency has to be corrected with cannabinoids. The theory is that there are certain conditions, whether they're congenital or acquired, there's certain conditions that are more prone to be linked to the endocannabinoid deficiency. Some of these conditions are fibromyalgia, chronic migraines, depression, anxiety, and irritable bowel syndrome. So these are the first conditions that were discovered in this syndrome or this deficiency. And the reason that these have been earmarked is because these are really hard to treat diseases in medicine. You know, these are diseases that typically don't have a tissue biopsy diagnosis. Typically, these conditions don't have a laboratory finding or result that you can pinpoint. So when you're looking at your endocannabinoids and being deficient, some of the symptoms that you may be experiencing right now is exhaustion. That could be a sign that you have clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. Or maybe you're achier more than usual after your workouts. Maybe you're stressed. Maybe you're feeling a lot more anxious these days. Maybe you're feeling your mood is low. Maybe you're having some frequent changes in your appetite or an upset stomach or a lot of constipation and diarrhea. Maybe you're having headaches that are coming out of nowhere. These are some of the signs and symptoms that can alert you that you could have clinical endocannabinoid deficiency, or your endogenous cannabinoids are deficient and you need CBD. So migraines, fibromyalgia, and irritable bowel syndrome, they all overlap. You'll notice that people who have fibromyalgia typically have irritable bowel syndrome and have migraines. So these conditions that overlap have also been found to have low levels of anandamide and 2-AG when they did a spinal tap on a lot of these patients. They took fluid from around their spine and they tested it for anandamide and 2-AG. So many of these patients had low levels, and because of that, they have deemed these particular conditions as those who are typically clinically having an endocannabinoid deficiency. These conditions also have a hyperalgesic state, meaning they have a sensitivity, a low threshold for pain. We talked about the fact that migraines, fibromyalgia, and irritable bowel syndrome lack a tissue diagnosis. You can't really do a biopsy to make the diagnosis, nor are there any laboratory findings. They all display high incidence of anxiety and depression. Typically, these patients are anxious and have depression. Many of these patients have $1 million workup, right? And it's negative. I know my aunt was one. She had $1 million workup only to give her a label of fibromyalgia, years after dealing with a lot of pain. And then what they notice also is that some of these patients suffer from only one of these syndromes, but typically 10 years down the line, they will end up with all three symptoms. So some additional conditions that fall under clinical endocannabinoid deficiency are listed here: glaucoma, PTSD, bipolar disease, unexplained fetal wastage, hyperemesis gravidarum, dysmenorrhea, which is painful periods, infantile colic, cystic fibrosis. There are many other conditions, but these also fall under the clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. So when we look at CBD, when we look at correcting this deficiency, we know that there's different methods of using CBD. There are topicals. We're going to learn about, there are edibles, there are tinctures, there's drops that you can put under your tongue, and then there's inhalation. And what we found is that as you use different products, they found that there are different absorption or bioavailability for every single product. So as you see, that inhalation way of using CBD, vaping it or smoking it, gives the body absorbs it a lot quicker than using a topical or even an edible. So just know that there are different methods of delivery that will have a different response on the body. And then when you talk about using CBD, these are charts that when you look very closely, many people don't need a lot of CBD. And that's why we always talk about, when we recommend CBD, you start low and slow. Because even in the Mayo Clinic, when they did research with chronic debilitating pain, those people really didn't need more than 25 to 50 milligrams of CBD. So what's great about CBD is that you don't need a prescription. You know, your doctor doesn't need to write a prescription. And unlike medical marijuana, you don't need a certification. So you don't need a prescription. You don't need a physician to certify like you need in a medical marijuana sort of environment. So how do you balance your endocannabinoid system? I knew there was a slide missing that I didn't go over. How do you balance your endocannabinoid system outside of using CBD, which we're going to talk about? Well, one way is exercise. You know, many of you have heard that there is something called the runner's high. When runners run, they get this endorphin surge. Well, research has really shown that it's not endorphins. It's actually the endogenous cannabinoids that we talked about, like anandamide and 2-AG, that increases as we exercise, as we run. There's another thing that happens when you do yoga or Pilates. Those endogenous cannabinoids increase as well. Lifestyle changes are a must. This is another way you can increase the endogenous cannabinoids. Refraining from alcohol, limiting your nicotine, smoking, diet, plant-based diets have been found to improve the endogenous cannabinoid level as well. Making sure you're getting that omega-3. Those essential fatty acids help to improve those endogenous cannabinoids. And then supporting your gut microbiome. Probiotics, pre and probiotics are really essential for your gut to reduce inflammation. And then, of course, CBD, which we're going to talk about. But just know that there are so many holistic ways of making sure that your endogenous cannabinoids like anandamide and 2-AG are working. So let's move on to our products. I want to talk about some products that you can use to ensure that if you are suffering from fatigue and stress and anxiety and insomnia and depression and inflammation and pain, these are signs that you have clinical endocannabinoid deficiency and you need to improve the levels in your body. So CBD is one way of doing it, and we talked about those other ways, right? let's read this disclaimer because the FDA does not approve any of these statements. If you are nursing pregnant, if you're on medications, if you're under a doctor's care, please discuss with your physician about using CBD. You know, we can't make any claims. We can't make diagnoses. We have to give you the information, which was the science about how the endocannabinoid system works and how our products work, but we cannot fair say that these products are going to cure, mitigate your condition. So that is our disclaimer. But what's critical is that your products here at Wakana are tested. And why is that critical? Well, it's critical because hemp, when it is cultivated, it is a bioaccumulator, meaning that hemp can accumulate whatever in the soil. So if you are dealing with a product that's not grown in organic soil or a product that is not tested for mold, mildew, pesticides, heavy metals, residual solvents, then you absolutely could have a product that's contaminated and could make you ill. So we've partnered here at Wakana with one of the top ISO labs in South Florida, Green Scientific. Green Scientific does all of our testing. They do our certificates of analysis. That means that our products are tested for potency. The CBD, CBN, CBG, all those cannabinoids we talked about at the beginning. We're looking at the percentages. We're looking at terpenes as well in our full spectrum products. Terpenes also have medicinal benefits to the body. We're also looking at pesticides, residual solvents, heavy metals to ensure that our products are safe, our products are effective, and our products are what they say is on the label that they are. So let's talk about one way of using CBD. We talked about tinctures. Tinctures are products that you place underneath the tongue. And what's so great about tinctures is that they are absorbed into the bloodstream through a gland that's found underneath the tongue. It's called a sublingual gland. So it's important that when you use a tincture, you're holding the tincture for 60 seconds before you swallow so that the tincture can be absorbed. We have two product lines. We have a power line, which is our full spectrum line. Full spectrum means that we're using the entire plant. We're using the cannabinoids, we're using the terpenes, we're having the flavonoids. That is the ability of this product to have what we call an entourage effect. And the entourage effect on your body gives you better results. So that's our power, our full spectrum line. Our pure or our broad spectrum line is the same sort of idea, but it removes the legal limit of THC. The legal limit of THC is 0.3% or less, and that's found in that full spectrum line. Our broad spectrum line contains less than 0.0% of THC. And that means we're not dealing with an isolate. It's not just CBD, but it's also the other cannabinoids with trace amounts of THC. So this is why our pure or our broad spectrum products, the products that are in the white labels, are great products for those who have random drug screens at their job. So we have our power tinctures, we have our pure tinctures, we have a water soluble product that you can use in liquids like smoothies, like tea, any liquid. And then we have our tinctures that are more therapeutic, a medicinal grade. That's our Hemp MD. Our Hemp MD is a product that really addresses more severe challenges and conditions. And then there's another tincture that addresses alopecia. Alopecia is absolutely an epidemic, but what we're finding, it is a global pandemic. Men and women all over the world are losing their hair. And they're losing their hair at higher rates because of COVID. COVID infections has caused a lot of hair thinning and hair loss. So we're seeing more people suffering from alopecia. We also see traction alopecia, right? From different hairstyles that we're using. We're using extensions, we're using wigs, we're using braids that causes hair thinning and hair loss. So these are our tinctures. We recommend taking the tinctures twice a day, starting low, starting slow, right? 3 drops twice a day is a great way to start our tinctures. Now, our tinctures take about 20 minutes to get into the bloodstream. They will last in the bloodstream for about 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours. So that's why twice a day dosing is a great way to start our tinctures. Now, our edibles include our gummies. It also includes our coffee. It also includes a product that you can bake and cook with. It includes, we're going to talk about some spices, and we have a vegan butter, but these are products that are ingested that take a little longer. They take about 60 to 90 minutes to get into the bloodstream. So that's why when you are using the tincture, I recommend you use the other edibles so that as one is working, the other one will kick in within 60 to 90 minutes. This is where the gummies come in. They absolutely come in at night. It's great to use gummies, not only for inflammation, to reduce pain, but to also aid in those people who have insomnia. They have that rebound fatigue in the morning because they're not getting into that REM sleep, that sleep that resets our immune system and makes us feel rested in the morning. So gummies are great. We also have our bitters. We have introduced our bitters. They don't contain CBD, but they're a great way to detox the system, to allow the toxins to be removed so that the CBD can work more efficiently in our body. We have an immune defense tea. Our immune defense tea is vital during this flu season. Again, as the global pandemic has continued, we want to make sure our host, our immune system, is working at its best. So again, we have our full spectrum gummies. That's the power line. We have our broad spectrum gummies. That's our pure line. We have products for those who have random drug screens, and that's our pure line. Now, our culinary products include our spices, our vegan butter, our Culinary Plus. These are great products that you can use in the kitchen. You can use in your recipe. You can use as you're baking and cooking because the holidays are coming up, and just a great way to get CBD into your system in a different method. Our topical products are products to offer local relief to those areas that may be inflamed. They may be inflamed because you have fibromyalgia or lupus. They may be inflamed because you've had trauma to an area. They may be inflamed or achy because you work out every day. But just know that topical products that contain CBD do not pass the blood-brain barrier. They do not show up in the urine. So these are products that can safely be used in those who have urine drug screens as well. So we have our Extreme Power Pain Cream, which is our #1 seller in our company. #1 seller, hands down. Why is it the #1 seller? Because it is enhanced with a proprietary formula that not only includes CBD, but includes 6 to 8 essential oils that reduce inflammation. Essential oils like peppermint, spearmint. All of these essential oils not only give it a great aroma as you are using it, but also helps to enhance the anti-inflammatory properties that CBD offers. We also have our Dr. Rita's Rub. That's our liquid power relief. It comes in a different formulation versus the salve or the cream, but I love the Dr. Rita's rub because it's something that's very mobile. You can put it in your purse, and during those times in the day, you need some relief locally, you can just rub it on that area. We offer Power Body Mango Cream. It is a product that is a body lotion that can address inflammatory issues of the skin, like psoriasis, like acne, like eczema. And I found that there are people that use the body lotion, and because it has 500 milligrams of CBD in the entire bottle, it has offered many a reduction in inflammation and pain, as well as protecting your skin. We have products that address the anti-aging, right? It's our holy serum, facial serum glow. It is a CBD product that addresses the collagen. It helps our skin as it ages. It helps our skin as it faces environmental stress. So our Holy Glow is a great product for those men and women that do not want to have those aging wrinkles and signs. Our smokables are another way to get CBD in, just another additional way. Smokables act very quickly. Within 5 minutes, you're feeling the effect of the CBD when you smoke it, when you vape it. We have our cartridges, which is our CBD hypnotic and our raspberry jane. We have our Delta 8, which is a cannabinoid that has gained a lot of popularity because it's very similar to Delta 9 without the high, and it's legal. And then we have our Delta 8 and our CBD pre-roll. It is a joint. It's like a cigarette. So for those who want to stop smoking, they're addicted to nicotine, this is a great option for them to help that withdrawal and that continued craving for nicotine. So what I tell my patients and my clients, each and every time they have an urge to smoke a cigarette, pick up this pre-roll, pick up a cartridge. 1 to 3 pulls is all you need. And then we have premium flower. Our flower is a great addition because there are people who like to roll their own CBD joint. And then we can't forget about the hair follicle, right? The skin is the largest organ on our body. We want to protect our skin. We've talked about the facial serum. We've talked about the body lotion and our body creams, but what about our hair? We talked about the epidemic, the global pandemic, which is hair loss, hair thinning from COVID, from stress, from different autoimmune conditions. So we have a whole hair care line, Save Our Strands, which contain CBD that will address the hair follicle, that will address the inflammation, that will address the bacteria, that will address those dead cells that need to be exfoliated so our hair can grow. When we look at the endocannabinoid clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome, you have to remember again that the endocannabinoid system's main role is to keep our body in balance. If our body is not maintaining balance, we can have conditions like migraines, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, glaucoma, dysmenorrhea. A lot of these syndromes and conditions are because our body is out of balance. Those endogenous cannabinoids are low, and we need to replace and replenish with these CBD products. So we have so many great choices. You can't go wrong. We are the crown jewel of CBD. We are going to transition at 8 o'clock for our business overview. So if you want more information, if you're desiring to perhaps get into the cannabis industry, please join our 8 o'clock call when we talk about our company, we talk about the leadership, we talk about our products more in depth, we talk about the opportunity, and we also talk about our founding members opportunity that we have going on right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If there's any questions, you can put it right there in the chat. If not, you can take 10 minutes break, hop on the 8 o'clock call, invite some guests on the 8 o'clock call, but just know the clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome is real. And we want to help our family members, we want to help our colleagues, we want to help our neighbors, we want to help ourselves to avoid all of these imbalances that our system has because of the environment, because of our diet, because of sleep deprivation. All of these things play a key role in the reduction of endogenous cannabinoids that our body can produce. So if you have any questions, put them here in the chat. We have about 10 minutes before we start our next call. And I don't see any questions. Wonderful. So if you're a guest on the line, please connect with the person that invited you. If you are interested in the 8 o'clock call, please connect with the person that invited you so that you can get more information, not only about our products, our business opportunities, our founding pack member to tap in to this $1 billion. Be safe. We will see you in